Today I'm going to be showing you the three main characteristics that every single top archer has in their technique. This might not be what you think. You might think you know the answer of today's video, but I'm going to show you a couple of archers' technique at the start. I want you to see if you can guess what these main things are in their technique, and then we're going to go through and I'm going to explain the rationale for why these three things are the most important parts in recurve technique. So we're going to start with, let's have a look at Kim Woo-jin shooting here, and I want you to see if you can see similarities between how these archers draw. So let's watch Kim Woo-jin first of all, how he draws. So okay, that's the first archer we've got here. A slightly good archer there, Kim Woo-jin, so that's a good reference point. And now another very good archer, Lee Woo-suk. Let's watch how he draws. Completely differently, absolutely completely differently. Different position of the bow, different way of drawing, much straighter in, slower. Lots of differences there in how he draws. And now let's look to the third archer, Im Dong-hyun here. Let's watch how he draws the bow. Let's watch how he raises and draws. Bit more similar to Kim Woo-jin, but again, very different. A lot of different things. Different stance here as well, look. So open stance for Im Dong-hyun, slightly leaning away from the target. Completely square stance for Lee Woo-suk here. So already quite a few differences. See if you can spot the similarities though. Now, if we go to a different video, let's go first of all to this one of Oh Jin-hyek. Let's see if you can watch how he draws the bow. What's similar between how he draws the bow and how the other archers draw the bow? Looks like maybe not a lot. Quite a different draw, as we've discussed in a previous video. So that's another kind of reference point we've got here. Now let's take a look at some other archer you might be familiar with. Let's take a look. Let's go here, just make sure it's fully in the screen for you, like so. Let's look at Mr. Ellison. Let's look at Brady Ellison. So let's watch how he draws the bow. I think there's a front angle in a second. Let's watch how he draws the bow. Completely sideways, if you like. Arm and elbow right out to the side. So kind of, this is obviously Kisik Lee style coaching. This is Brady is his obviously best student, but completely different style of shooting here. So how is this similar? How do you reconcile all these differences? And even when you then look at the release, there's differences. For example, if we look at, again, Oh Jin-hyek here, if we go to the release side and we go here, just watch his release. Watch his fingers, watch his follow through. Fingers straighter, kind of opening, a little bit more relaxed and leaning back release. You then compare that to, let's go maybe to Lee Woo-suk again. Let's compare that to Lee Woo-suk's release on this video, and you're going to see even more differences. Watch his release, his fingers. If we get this in the shot for you, his fingers here, straight, more punchy release, kind of more aggressive release, very, very different to Oh Jin-hyek's. So what are the common things? So when I was looking at this is a good segue, by the way. When I was making the Online Archery Academy website and all my technique guides, and this is when I was looking over all my kind of experience as an archer and kind of working out what techniques worked for me, what worked for other people. This is where I came up with my technical framework, but also I had a look and said, okay, what are the actual common similarities between top archers? What are the things that every single archer has? And it's not, at first I thought maybe it's alignment, maybe it's shoulder alignment. But maybe you can see, if we look at shoulder alignment, you can go to this position here with Lee Woo-suk. He's got great shoulder alignment. But there are exceptions. There are people who don't necessarily have great shoulder alignment. So this is where it gets tricky. I wanted it to be shoulder alignment, but it's not. If we go back to the view of Oh Jin-hyek, and we go to this view here, you can see his shoulder alignment isn't what you would call conventionally great. It's not as if you were going to put an arrow on the back here. A common thing would be, if I get my brush up here, a common thing would be to put an arrow on the back of the scapula, and then someone would say, okay, we're going to do that, and then when we have this arrow on the back of the scapula, we want it to point far to the right of the target. It's not going to do that for Oh Jin-hyek. It's not going to do that because his front shoulder is a little bit more set back. So his actual shoulder joints here, if we draw kind of a line there, and we draw one here and one here, his shoulder joints are a bit better aligned. This green line is a bit kind of misguiding where you think his alignment is just because of his shoulder blades. But his alignment isn't, the best as well. And there are more examples of this crucially as well. You might think it is going to be draw elbow line. This is probably this one here. This is possibly the most consistent other than the top three. However, I'm going to remove the suspense. The top three, after watching all of the top archers, essentially over the last 15 years, there are three things that they all have in common. And these are absolutely universal. And these are the only three things that actually they share between each of them. So the first thing is body stability. This is the absolute first thing. No matter what someone's technique and how they draw the bow and how they release, their body stability for top archers is always excellent. So what I mean by body stability is, if we're looking at this back view here, is the movement of their body forwards and backwards. So we're looking from the back here, and I mean from their body movement this way or this way, forwards along the shooting line or backwards along the shooting line. It's really common to see lower level archers, maybe even club or county or even national level archers, have quite a bit of body lean and movement, which vastly disrupts, it really disrupts the whole shot and how you can feel the shot happening and how you can feel your shoulder alignment. So let's watch here. Let's watch when Mr. O shoots. There's not very much movement. He's generally very, very still. He's probably got the most movement out of the top archers, and his is very, very still generally. It's incredibly still, even through the draw that he has, which is quite fast. And then on release as well, very still. We then watch, we don't have a 6 o'clock view of Iwoo Suk, but I have a combination video here that I wanted to show you. So if we just minimize some of these other videos to make it clearer. So we'll minimize a couple of these for you. And we just want to focus on this video here of a couple of archers. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 8 archers here. This is taken at the Shanghai World Cup. And have a look at these 8 archers. This is on the practice day. Look at their body stability. Every single one of them when they raise the bow. So let's take a look now. Who's going to shoot next? Chang Hai-jin is going to shoot. Look at her raise. Look how still her body is. And then comes down and carries on the shot. Then we have Iwoo Suk is about to shoot now. Look how still his body is. Completely still. This is the number one key thing. And the reason this is so important, I'm going to go to the full screen here. The reason this is so important that people underestimate, because I go on about this a lot, is if you are too focused on raising the bow up quickly and drawing back and using kind of leverage to do this part of the draw, and you're swaying around, it's impossible for you to feel what's happening with your shoulders. So let me repeat that. If your body is not stable, it's impossible for you to feel what's happening with your shoulders. And this is when you get one of those shots. I think everyone's had this. When you get one of those shots where you shoot it and you think, or maybe even during the shot, you think something's not right here, but I don't know what it is and I can't tell what it is. Sometimes even after the shot, you might do the shot, you might shoot and you think something was wrong there. It didn't feel good. I don't know what it is and what caused that, and I don't know how to stop that. That is what happens when you don't have a stable core. And when I say core, I don't just mean your literal core like your stomach or anything. I mean the core of the shot, i.e. the whole pillar from your stance all the way up to your shoulders and your head. You're kind of swaying around and moving. If that's the case, you can't feel what's happening in your shoulders, and then you can't feel what's happening in the shot. And that's when you get those shots where you feel something's off and you don't know what it is. So this is why I go on and on and on about stance and posture, because the ironic thing is people who need to pay the most attention to it don't, and the people who are best at it pay the most attention to it. So the little story I've got for you here is I went to one of the Korean training centers, the Hyundai Steel training center, and I shot for a day. And one of the archers there, his body posture and stability is incredible. He was the youth world champion, I think, in 2015, I think it was. He's basically perfectly still through the whole shot. You can watch him shoot from his head all the way to his feet. It's just like up, down, come through, shoot. Nothing moving. And all he did for like 2 hours was shoot with his feet together, at close range blank bay, all this was, his feet together, and then after shooting with his feet together, he'd shoot with his normal stance. And then after doing that, he'd shoot a little bit on one of those kind of wobble board type things. You know, the little kind of gel, they're like filled with air. They're kind of like round button type things filled with air, and you can balance on them. They're slightly unstable. And then he'd shoot on that. Then he'd go back to his normal shot. And then he'd shoot a little bit with his eyes closed, because when you close your eyes, this is a drill on my website as well. When you close your eyes, it makes your balance harder and it makes you more likely to move. did all of these things, and his body posture and stability was excellent to start with. He did like 2 hours of this. Yet, I will go to a club and see people shooting that are swaying all over the place, and they just want to work on their release, or they just want to work on their bow hand, but they haven't mastered the basics, which is that central column, that central still column. So that's the first thing. And these 3 things are in the beginning section. This is a good segue to my advanced recurve technique course. If you haven't checked out my courses already, you definitely need to do that. You can go to onlinearcheryacademy.com. There's a link to explore the courses here, or you can go directly to courses.onlinearcheryacademy.com. I'll open that so you can see. There's a beginner's course and an advanced course. But if you'd joined already, you would have seen these kind of 3 basic things, which I created because I looked at all the top archers and I said, what is common between them? So we cover these basic things, we then cover how to get them, and we cover every single stage of the recurve shot as well. So you can explore the courses in more depth. There's basically every single thing you need to know. If you haven't had a look already, I don't know what you're doing, but I'll put a special link in the description, the comments, with a little discount as well. So you can go down to the bottom, you can see all the sections we cover. You can look at the frequently asked questions as well and see if it's for you to join. If you don't want to do that at the moment, that's obviously fine, but you can also, on my website, you can click the Become a Member, and just for $3.99 a month, you can get all of the things on this page, which essentially is like Patreon but better. You unlock access to every single full technique guide on my website. You get weekly video guidance and Q&As from me, so I'm recording a Q&A after this video. People have sent in their questions to be answered, and I'll post that in my Telegram community. You get tips from some of the world's best archers. You get all the technique and drills libraries as well, and you can cancel at any time. So if you don't want to do any of those paid options, lastly, just pop your email address in at the front page of my website, and you'll get my free weekly newsletter where I send 3 tips to everyone that people really like as well. So I think there's over 7,000 archers worldwide now get this email, but that's an option if you don't want to do anything paid at the moment as well. So that was a good segue into that. The second thing that I wanted to show you, so the first thing is body posture and stability. The second thing is a consistent anchor. And I have to be careful here, because when I say anchor, I don't mean just the position of the hand on the face and what people normally consider as the anchor. It's essentially the full position of your whole shot at full draw, including, this is the crucial bit, including how far you got to the tip of the clicker, your shoulder alignment, your position, your head position, the string on your face, all of that. So that's all your kind of combined anchor. But essentially, if you've got a very, very still body, and then you can have a consistent anchor point that gets you to very close to clicking your clicker, and then finally, the third thing that you need is a consistent way to expand through the clicker. Those are the 3 things that you need. No matter who you look at, no matter what their technique, they have those 3 things. And when you watch in absolute detail, you can see that pretty much every single top archer, whether they do some crazy move the head, Frangili style, put the thumb behind the neck and then bend the front arm and do all this, they have great body stability. They have a consistent way to get that arrow close to the end of the clicker, and then they have a consistent way to expand. And then what that means is the final bit is that creates a consistent release and execution. And that consistent release and execution is the goal of everything that we've done in the recurve shot. So all those 3 points are there just to serve that final point of the consistent release and execution. So those are the 3 things. And now before we finish the video, I want to give you a couple of ways that you can work on those things. So the body posture and stability is really interesting because if I go back to this here, all these Korean archers, in the winter, they often shoot from inside a shelter, because it's very cold in the winter in Korea. They shoot from inside a shelter through narrow windows out to 70 meters. The result of that is they have a window like this. So let's put this here. They have a window like this. If they sway their body along the shooting line like this, it's very easy to see because they're going to be moving relative to that window. If you've shot from one of those kind of shelters before, you'll know that if you sway forward and backwards, it's quite unnerving because you feel like you're going to shoot the window. You need to be still because you need to shoot through the gap to the target. And if you're not still, it's very obvious that you're moving because you have that reference in your vision. Most Western archers don't have a facility like that, so it's not very obvious when they move. So there are a couple of drills you can do. Feet together shooting is great. and that prevents any shifting this way. So that prevents any shifting kind of away from the target and towards the target. To work on this shifting along the shooting line, I'd encourage you to put something between you and the target. So normally I'll get a tripod and I'll put that between my vision. So I'll put it fairly close to me, between me and the target, and I'll put it just to the side so that you can shoot, and you're not going to shoot the tripod, but when you shift, it clearly moves in your vision. This is a really good way to work on that stability because you have that reference point similar to the window that I mentioned. So that's a great way to work on that part of the shot. The second part of the shot, getting to that point, that anchor position that's consistent every time, light bow draw-ups are going to do wonders here because you're going to be able to keep that body stability. You're going to be able to practice getting to exactly the same position on the clicker and doing it consistently with your reference point as well. Doing band draw-ups doesn't work for this because you don't have any anchor with the string. So that doesn't really work. You need the string. And when you're doing this, if you really want to make it even better, you can get a video delay feedback. Put it on your clicker. So it's basically looking at the arrow, and you've got your clicker here, you've got the arrow, and you can see into it. So essentially you've got it like this, and you can see that you're drawing in, and you can see where the arrow gets to, and then you can see the expansion part as well. So you can see how consistently you're getting to that length, and you can see how consistently you're doing the next bit, which is that expansion. You don't want to see any collapse forward. You don't want to see any jaggedy movement of the arrow. You don't want to see any click and then collapse before you shoot. You don't want to see any movement after the click. For example, if your fingers are touching the arrow and the arrow kind of jolts up. So this is a great way to work on the anchor position, getting that consistent, and then also on the expansion part. Finally, for the expansion part as well, I'd encourage you to use, if you go on my website, onlinearcheryacademy.com, you go to the blog section. Maybe I can bring that up for you in a second here as well. But if we bring that up, there's a blog post on the arrow in elbow device drill. So I'd encourage you to have a look at this because it's a really good drill to train that final part, the expansion. So if you go to the website here and you go to the blog section, and then we go to, I believe it's on training, or maybe it's on the arrow. So let's load more here. There we go, the 2-minute guide on how to make an expansion trainer. So let's have a look at this. This is a great way to train that expansion because it gives you that feedback in the same way that the first drill gave you that feedback with the reference of the target. So this is simply an old arrow made with a piece of elastic through, 2 pieces of elastic through it, and you put that arrow in your elbow like this, as the name suggests, arrow in the elbow drill. This is how you make one if you don't have one already. And this is how you use it. So if we press play here, you'll have to forgive my slow internet, but you can see the arrow in elbow device there is in the crease of the elbow, and as you're drawing you can feel essentially the lower and the upper arm squeezing together, and you can feel that against the arrow device there. And as you're going to expand, you basically increase that squeeze on the device and it trains you to expand in the right way. So this is a really good way of training that expansion, and together with the video delay on your clicker is going to be a great way to improve that. So those are the 3 things I wanted to leave you with today. It's not what you thought, maybe with alignment, maybe with the way that they're drawing, maybe all these kind of the hook or the bow hand grip. It's these 3 things are the only universal things that you need to work on. And I'd encourage you to start, please, with the stance and posture. If you're moving around loads while you're shooting, it's going to make everything else impossible. That's all from me today. I'll see you in the next video.